How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to New Mexico State Men's Basketball News. I'm Marshall, and as you guys see, I'm back in Carlsbad for work. It's my lunch break, so I decided to make a video because I feel like that's the best time to do it. We're going to talk about a variety of topics today, but before we get to that, today is my birthday. Thought I might as well mention that. That'd be pretty cool. So yes, I did work on my birthday, but that's something I feel like you just got to get used to, I guess. Other news surrounding myself before we talk about Aggie basketball is, as you guys know, I've talked about it a few times, I'm here interning at the Artesia Daily Press. I know a couple of you guys have been wanting to see some of my articles and stuff. I'll probably make a community post sometime soon in the next couple of weeks, just linking all my stories because, I was going to do it a couple weeks ago, but I was like, might as well wait till I'm finished with it, which my last day is technically August 1st, but I'll still be here in Artesia, or not here, I'm in Carlsbad right now. I'll be in Artesia for, a couple weeks after that before I move back into school at NMSU for my senior year on August 16th. So probably around that time, August 16th, I'll, put together a link of all my stories, put in my community post. So if you guys want to go check that out, or if you guys just search up Artesia Daily Press and you go to the search bar, type in my name, you'll see a bunch of stories pop up. I've also written stories for the Carlsbad Current Argus, the Rio Doso News, and the Alamogordo News. And throughout the school year, I'll be doing some freelance writing. So whenever any of those schools have any sporting events or just any events in general going on in Las Cruces or nearby, like in Deming, even just in Anthony or in El Paso or anywhere nearby, I'll be helping out with that. So that'll be a good opportunity for me. Now it's time to shift the focus from myself to the Aggies. Just thought I would give a quick personal update on myself and what's going on in my life. And let's get to it. The first guy I want to talk about in today's video is former Aggie Dionte Bostick. As you guys know, he played very well in that first game of the TBT. He had 12 points against, former Louisiana Tech players. And so he's 3-0 against Louisiana Tech just this calendar year alone. Obviously beat them twice when he was at NMSU. Had two decently good games overall. And then had a pretty solid game against them. Was second on the team in scoring. But they did lose the next game. He did have 8 points. He averaged 10, and that was second on the team in scoring as well. So he scored the ball at a higher rate, in those two games he did at NMSU. But he was able to do a lot of other great things at both NMSU and in the TBT. Got his teammates involved, got to the rim with ease. Really strong finisher. He did a lot with the Aggies. I feel like obviously, he wasn't our top option. And I feel like if he was our top option, that he would get more looks. And I feel like, any team he's on, he'll fit their system well, whether that's being the best player or just being a, starting caliber player. It kind of reminds me of how when he was at Cal State Northridge, I've talked about multiple times, he was the top dog on the team, averaged 15 points per game. And on this team in the TBT, he was one of the top dogs as well. And, showcased his skills, and hence why he was second on the team in scoring. When he was playing with the Aggies last year, obviously he had a bunch of guys like Christian Cook, Zodie Jackson, Robert Carpenter, guys that could defend and just, score the ball at a high rate. And so can Dionte Bostick. But when you have so many guys like that, their scoring is going to definitely go down. But Christian Cook and Robert Carpenter's points per game did go up from the year prior for the Aggies, so that was good for them. Overall, I'd say Bostick played pretty well. I'd give him about a B+ for his grade for how he played. He finished well. I think he shot 8 for 20 total. He could get to the rim with ease, but he wouldn't always finish with ease. A lot of times he would blow layups, but he was still showing his quickness. And, not a lot of hope people could guard him. I think he would have had a couple more points if he could just finish at the rim a little bit better. But he also had a lot of good finishes. And he shot pretty well from the free throw line, better than he did at NMSU. At NMSU, he only shot 55.6% or something like that. And everywhere else he was, I think at Cal State Northridge, he started in the 70s. So not sure why he didn't shoot great with the Aggies. But again, that's just the Aggie curse, I guess. No one can hit free throws. The next guy I want to talk about in today's video is current Aggie Chris Terrell. We talked about him multiple times, but he's just a scoring machine. He's averaged double figures in every year he's played at college basketball, played some junior college basketball and Division II basketball, and now he's playing Division I basketball. As you guys know, former Aggies have, done very well, making the transition from Division II to Division I. I talked about it multiple times. You guys are probably getting tired of me saying it. For all the newcomers, Zodie Jackson and Christian Cook were two of our best players last year, and Christian Cook was arguably our best player for 2 years in a row. Again, there's an argument to be made there with Peter Filipovich. I think Peter Filipovich definitely had the better year last year, but I think Christian Cook was definitely the better player the year before whenever there was no Peter. And Peter had a great year at Maine, averaged about 14 points, I think 7 to 9 rebounds a game, then came to the Aggies. You would maybe think Cook's scoring went down kind of like what it did with Bostick, but it did not. That's no knock to Bostick at all. Usually you would expect that from a lot of guys. Another guy on our team, Julius Mims, averaged 11 points per game his first year at Idaho. That dropped to 8 as there was more scorers coming in. Cook's points per game went from 11.3 to 12.8, so almost a 2 full points. And there were times at the beginning of the year where he was averaging like 14, 15 points per game, kind of similar to what Femi Odkali was doing last year. But as time went on, stats went down. That's usually how it works. I feel like at the beginning of the year, even if you have a couple big games, as time goes on, you're more prone to having an injury. And even if you don't have an injury, your body just, is more sore or hurt just throughout the season. And if it's not, then you're not working hard enough, right? So stats tend to go down as time goes on. So that's just normal. But Cook still maintained it, and even toward the end of the year, his last 10 games, I think 9 of them he scored in single digits. Whereas before that, he only had like 1 or 2 games like that. But defenses were game planning for him very well, which did allow Peter to dominate and play well. That's why there's an argument to be made there, because they weren't guarding Peter like they were Cook. So I could see the argument being made for either or. In my opinion, I think Peter had the better year overall, especially toward the end when it mattered most. But I think Cook, even when it did matter most, if his offense wasn't, getting it done, his defense was still there. And you wouldn't be able to tell that in the stats. You have to watch the games both on the road and at home. He's a great on-ball defender, like we talked about multiple times, and just super grateful we had him for the 2 years we did. The next guy we're going to be talking about today is another former Aggie who we mentioned, in previous videos, Evan Gilyard II. He's playing very well for the Calgary Surge in the Canadian Elite Basketball League, which again is the same league that Teddy Allen used to play in for the Winnipeg Bears. I think it's Sea Bears is their name. But Evan's balling out, averaging 21.3 points per game, about 4 assists, almost 3 rebounds, averaging about 2.5 steals per game, which is amazing. I made a post about him on my social media accounts recently, and the Calgary Surge on Twitter reposted it, I believe, and then on Instagram they commented on it. Didn't get a follow, but that would have been cool. But just them seeing it, reposting it, liking it. They were commenting how Evan Gilyard's been getting it done for them. I think they had a game pretty recently, like yesterday. I'm not sure how he did, but he's been balling overall. He was averaging 25, had a couple of 30-point games. I believe he had a game where he had 30, 37, 25, 23. A couple games where he was still scoring double figures, but not 20. I think he'd be like 17, maybe 13 or 15. So he's been putting the ball in the hoop. He's working hard. He's had experience playing in the G League and overseas. He's definitely had that talent. And who knows, maybe one of these days he makes the NBA. There's always a chance for those guys. I know as they get older, their chances of making it aren't as high. But we talked about a couple of players in the NBA, like Joe Ingles and Duop Reith, who plays for the Blazers. And Joe Ingles also played for the Blazers. Never played in a real game for them, just was on the bench because he was hurt and then got traded, switched teams. He's played for the Jazz. He's played for the Magic. He's played for, a variety of teams, even more than just that. Duop Reith has only been the Blazers. He also played for the Australian team, in the Olympics for a couple years. And they're both great players. And, again, they didn't make their debuts till they're 27. But Joe Ingles has been in the league for a good amount of time. He's been in the league for over a decade. Duop Reith will be entering his 3rd year this next year for the Blazers. And, he's fit a pretty solid role. When there's injuries, he gets in the rotation, he dominates. But there's some games he gets DNPs. But with the minutes he gets, he, provides some solid minutes for sure. My point is that it's definitely possible for guys like Evan Gilyard, Teddy Allen, Serge Rice, even Juwan Gordon, who we talked about multiple times recently. It's very possible for those guys to get those NBA contracts, even if they're not like super young, like 18 or 19, like a lot of NBA teams like to go for. And a long time ago, like my favorite player in the NBA, Damian Lillard, who's now in the Blazers, back on the Blazers, which I'm super happy about. He played at Weber State for 4 years, got drafted into the NBA at 22 years old, or he was 21, turned 22 by the time the season started. He was 21 in the Summer League, actually played on his birthday in a Summer League game. They got the win, not sure what his stats were. Not a lot of teams draft guys like that anymore, unfortunately, though. I feel like there are more veteranized players. Another example is Matisse Thybulle, who played for the University of Washington. He grew up in Seattle. He's not from there. He's from Scottsdale. He's also Australian, too. I believe his dad's Australian. So he also played with Duop Reith, and now their team is with the Blazers, which is pretty cool. Serge Rice played in college for 6 years. Teddy played for about 5 years. Juwan Gordon played for 5 years. Evan Gilyard, I think, just played for the 4 years. But again, you're not going to see a lot of NBA players playing that many years in college, but anything's possible. The last guy we're going to be talking about today is another current Aggie, Anthony. I'm not going to say his last name. I'll probably put his name on the screen, that way you guys can see the last name and know why I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I've tried pronouncing it a few times, but I just don't want to keep butchering it. But you guys know what I'm talking about. If you guys, were Aggie fans last year, went to a lot of the games, you guys saw how he was on the sidelines wearing street clothes and stuff. He played for Sam Houston State for 2 years during the 2022-23 and 2023-24 season. During his first year there, he played under, Coach Hooten, and now he's here with the Aggies. So has some experience there. Despite us only having 2 returners in Gabe Pickens and Jacoby Osborne, Anthony's another guy who was at least, kind of part of the program last year and knows Coach Hooten's system very well. Kind of reminds me whenever, Hooten brought in Casey Eziagu and even Keelan Dorsey, even though he was an incoming freshman and hadn't learned a whole lot under Coach Hooten's system. They at least had that relationship. I think it's just very valuable for the team to have. Once again, I don't know anything about Marvin Cox. I'm not sure why he's on the team anymore. There could be a variety of reasons, and if I ever do find out, I'll make sure to let you guys know. The 2 years Anthony was at Sam Houston State, he was in the rotation, but he wasn't like a dominant player. He only averaged about 3 points per game. But, those 3 points were big points. He had some really, really good dunks. Could shoot the lights out from the ball for the most part. Played overseas in Poland. I believe he averaged double figures and scoring like 10 to 12 points per game. So he's got a lot of great experience playing basketball. And I think for this year's team, again, he's a 6'4" guard, probably played the 2 shooting guard. And there's so many guards on this team, but I feel like he has a good chance of playing some big minutes because he has experience playing under Hooten, just like how I think Gabe Pickens and Jacoby Osborne also have, some good chances to, play a lot. Even if they're not starting, I think all three of those guys can still do a lot of great damage for the Aggies off the bench. And who knows, maybe they do become starters sometime throughout the year. A lot of times, you don't expect guys to, do what they do, and they perform. Anthony's also a guy that's been supporting the social media accounts heavily. Not sure if he watches the YouTube videos, but if you are watching this one, what's up? He was with Adam Young on their little podcast a couple months ago, and he just seems like a mature young man and knows what he's doing and has a lot of great things coming for him with the Aggies, I think, in my opinion. I think he's a guy that can come into the games and get the crowd hyped up with some crazy finishes at the rim, whether it's dunks, reverse layups, whatever it may be, and even just shooting the lights out. I believe if we're playing against a non-Division I opponent, he can really dominate, especially he'll get more PT then. I think he'll be in the rotation, and I think he'll play in most games. I don't think he'll have any DNPs, considering, again, he knows Coach Hooten's system very well. But again, I don't think he'll be starting, but hey, maybe he proves me wrong. I hope he does. I think he can be a really solid player for us. He seems like a cool guy. Never talked to him in person, but, just, again, the interviews I see with him or the podcast and the interactions I had with him, through social media. Like when it was his birthday, I was, saying, hey, man, happy birthday. Really looking forward to watching you hoop. He was like, hey, man, really appreciate you. So, excited to see what he does for the Aggies. That's all I have for you guys today. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm out.